Okay, thank you. And everyone, it's 12:05. Welcome to today's session, How to Manipulate Your Time to Get Ahead in Business and in Life with Michael Opyd. This is the first time that we're going to encounter or meet Michael. So let's all welcome Michael and thank him for his generous time and
Thank you.
expertise for sharing his valuable life lessons with us. And the materials will be distributed after the session. Take it away, Michael.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for this opportunity. Hopefully, I can really provide some amazing information for you today. I usually do this in an hour, so I'm going to move a little bit quick. So if I'm talking too fast, please ask questions or slow it down, or need me to slow it down or clarify. So I'm going to try to pack as much as I can into basically the next 25 minutes. So let me just get started and just I always like to do this at the beginning of my presentations, just kind of make a promise to you, right? So obviously time is our most valuable asset. We don't get more of it. So my promise to you over the next 25 minutes is just not to waste your time. I really want you to be able to take this information, digest it, and use it in your life, because it has really helped me in mine and a lot of other people I've spoken with and taught this to them. So I just really want to make that promise. This would be worth it, and I'm not going to waste your time over the next 20 whatever minutes we have left. So I always want to put that out there in the beginning. If you don't know me, if you haven't Googled me, just let me give you a quick kind of bio on myself. So my expertise was in an entrepreneur into the real estate field. I did that for a number of years. I was an agent. I built a brokerage. I've written a couple books about how agents who are entering the industry can build a business quickly, because there's not a lot of education there. But the biggest thing I really want to just kind of express about myself is that, and why I'm qualified, I guess you could say, to speak on this topic, is that the biggest thing I've done is over the last almost, I would say, 2+ decades, I've studied some of the most amazing people, most legendary people that have ever walked this planet, and spent roughly over 25,000 hours doing this and learning from these people. People like Tony Robbins and, Jim Quick, if you ever heard of him, Jay Shetty, some of these people that are out there putting really good content in the world. And I've also spent a lot of time studying and learning from people that have walked this planet and have really become successful and how they did it. People like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Michael Jordan, Steve Jobs, Oprah Winfrey, Estee Lauder. I love learning from the people that have built something, and because history leaves clues and they leave a blueprint, and all these autobiographies are out there for us to read. So just a quick thing about me, that's really one of the biggest things, is that I've spent all this time learning from these people, and a lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about today I got from these people. But the thing I really want to mention is just that I didn't just learn it from them and then I'm just regurgitating whatever they did. What I always do is, if I'm going to teach about something, I always take that information, I test it out in my own lives, I explain it to other people, let them test it out, and then really see what works. And that is what I teach on. So just know that everything I talk about today, it's proven to work. This isn't stuff I'm just making up out of nowhere. This is stuff that the most successful human beings use to get to where they are in life. So that's just a little bit about me, but let's dive into this, because I really want to share some really good stuff with you guys, starting with just kind of give you an understanding of just how time works. Obviously, we know clocks, right? We all see clocks. They are literally everywhere. They are all around us. And time is constant. We see it. It ticks the same amount no matter where you are in the world, no matter what time zone you are in. It's all around us. And the thing, though, is what's so interesting is, although time is constant, the perception of time is not constant. And we've all experienced this in our lives. This isn't nothing new. It's, when you're bored, time seems like it just doesn't move. It just ticks slower for whatever reason. But when you're having a great time, all of a sudden you blink and whatever you were doing is over. We see this with vacations, or if we go to events, or we go to like baseball games. Anytime we're having fun, it moves fast, right? We all kind of understand that. The interesting thing, though, about perception is that they have done studies about how we perceive time as human beings. And the biggest thing is that they did was there was a gentleman, he did this multiple times. He went into a cave for multiple months and there was no light, no nothing. He was being monitored, but he had no idea what was going on in the world around him. And what was interesting was as he was keeping track of time, he was sleeping for like 36 hours. He was awake for 48 hours. And when he did this, and when he came out, he actually spent New Year's in this cave. And when he came out, he thought it was January 4th. So the point of that, though, is just how we experience time is really based on the fact that we are surrounded by clocks and also that we experience it differently. So it's really kind of relevant to how we see time in our minds. So that's one thing I want to talk about. The next thing is just how the mind processes time, because this is also important. So you understand kind of like a structure of how time works, how we all perceive it differently. Well, how do we perceive it differently? That's the interesting thing. So let me just dive into a little bit more about how your mind processes time before I teach you about just how you can use this information to your advantage. First thing to understand is that your brain, this lump that's 3 feet above your butts, is the most amazing supercomputer ever created. It's more advanced than any of the AI stuff that we see or hear about, or any technology that's out there. And it actually takes in 11 million pieces of information per second. So if you just think about that for a second, and you just go like all the senses you have, you're hearing me, you're seeing me, you feel that you're sitting somewhere, or maybe you're walking and you feel the wind on you. Your brain takes all of that in every second, but it could only consciously process 40 pieces of the 11 million per second. And it does this because our brains are also this super filter, right? So like, and if you think about if you just like, a good example I give of this is just that, if you drive to work every single day, do you remember every single trip you took? Of course not, right? Because this is how our brains work. It's taking in all this information when you're driving, but you've been driving for a long time. So it kind of almost filters out what you're driving. And if anything happens, though, it will be retained. So if you get into a car accident, your brain is going to retain that information because it's not part of that like monotony of and routines that we have every day that your brain just kind of throws out the back. That makes sense. The next thing is, so if you think about time and how we all experience it, our brains, this supercomputer, this ultimate filter, it actually lumps time together because of just how it categorizes things. If you almost think of it as just like this massive like file cabinet, and how our brains process things, it's always putting stuff in the file cabinets. But what happens is when we do these things over and over and over, it starts just lumping time together. That's why, we don't remember exactly what happened 12 years ago on the same day as we are today. Like I have no idea what I did, this day 12 years ago. It's just because our time gets lumped together in our minds. So our mind could really just kind of puts it all together, kind of puts it in the back so that we can focus on what's going on in the present. That's why as we get older, time moves faster because we have more time on this planet, and it's just lumping it all together. And we all know how fast time goes. We blink and all of a sudden it's 5 years later. And we kind of wonder, like, how did that happen? It happened because our minds lump it all together just to make it simpler because of how much is going in every second. And we see this with memory, especially when you are 8 years old and you have a week go by. That week of time is huge to an 8-year-old because they haven't been on this planet long enough to have a long period of time. So for them, 1 week is a long time. It feels like a long time. And if you remember back to when you were in grade school, if you ever were sitting there and you're thinking like time is not moving and you felt like grade school just felt like it took forever, this is why. Because when you are talking about a short period of your life, the memory is going to feel like it takes longer. But when you're 80 years old or later in life, the memory of that stuff, it's now it's stretched out over 80 years or whatever, and it feels smaller. That makes sense, and that's why it goes faster. But what happens is, though, although all this is happening at the same time, our minds do need to keep track of stuff. And we do this through time markers. Now, we all remember 9/11. I guarantee you can remember where you were at and those feelings you had at that moment. That's because of basically just a way that it kind of broke up the monotony in your life at that time. And it marked time. So we all know that happened in 2001. Same thing with birthdays and with New Year's. This is how your brain kind of categorizes everything, so if you just think about like time markers throughout your year, this is where we go back and we go, oh, I remember that from 5 years ago because that was when I was whatever, like however, like whatever you're doing at that time, because of whatever birthday you could think of or the New Year's. Your brain's going to mark these times, and that's how it kind of categorizes everything. Does all that make sense? I want to make sure. I think there might be some questions. I want to make sure I'm being very clear on this. All right. I think I am. If not, Arlene, please let me know if there's anything that comes up. Okay, so now you understand how time works. You understand how our mind processes it. So the question is just, how can you manipulate time? And I did go quick through those last sections because I really want to spend more time on this. So again, please let me know if I'm going too fast or anything. But so how do you manipulate time? If you think about time, you almost could think of it as like clay. It could be very moldable if you spend the time to actually mold it. Most people don't. I think that's the other reason why time goes so fast, is because we get caught up into just what we have to do on a daily basis. We get up at the same time, we eat at the same time, we go to bed at the same time. We do a lot of the same things over and over and over. So to really kind of manipulate time, you have to break the monotony of it. And to slow it down, the best way to do this is to break your routines. Now, obviously, if you want to be successful and really get far in life, or if you have a lot going on, obviously routines are an amazing thing that you can use to help you get ahead. And I'm not saying you got to stop your routines, but what you got to look at is kind of like, all right, well, what can I do maybe every day, every week, to just really kind of break up what is that monotony that we tend to find ourselves falling into as we go through life. And if you can find a way to break it up, maybe it is something as simple as, I don't know, maybe taking a day off, and if you can, I know you guys are crazy busy, and just spending time in nature. Or maybe it is just putting the technology down for an hour and just meditating or something. But you got to find ways to break it up. That is one of the best ways to slow it down. Something I do on a regular basis is that I usually find, like, probably in about the afternoon, they've done studies that right around 2 o'clock, our bodies, our minds just kind of get overloaded from everything that happened throughout the day. And they've really recognized this recently with all the technology we have and how busy life's become. So you might feel this where you're just feeling kind of groggy, and it's usually our instinct, if we can, to just push through it. This is where a lot of people go get their coffee, they'll go grab energy drinks, and then they'll get right back into the routine. Something I've done, that if I have that time available, is I like to just put everything down, spend about like 15 to 20 minutes or even 30 minutes. I'll go for a walk. I'll just kind of close my eyes for a second, and I just try to break up the day. So that's one way you can use to slow it down. Find ways to just kind of put breaks into your routines that you have. The next thing is you can actually create more time in the day. Now, obviously, if this is more if you have some finances available to do this. So it's something I learned from Mark Cuban, if you've ever heard of him. He's a fantastical entrepreneur to follow because he shares a lot. He is the owner of the Dallas Mavericks. He made his money during the dot-com boom back in the day in the early 2000s. He's a billionaire. And he said something that always stuck with me. And obviously, he's got tons of money to do this. But I think you could even do this on a smaller scale in some sense, is that the way he creates time is he's always looking for ways to delegate it. Like, what do you do on a regular basis that maybe someone else can do for you? And you don't have to just pay for it. You could trade, time with someone else to do things that could help them out as well. But if you have the finances, is there stuff that you can do to create more time in your life? And one of the things that my wife and I talked about, even when we were struggling financially at the time, was that we didn't have the time to clean our house. We knew it took about 4 hours to clean our house, so we just said, "Is it make sense to pay someone to do this?" And obviously, you got to be in that place to do it. I'm not saying that you should break the bank to do it, but like we knew that if we were able to figure out how to pay this person, that we can then essentially, create 4 more hours in our days. I know a lot of people do this with getting their lawn taken care of, their lawn cut. But what I recognize is, like if I'm not cleaning the house for 4 hours, that's 4 hours I get back every other week, is how often we have. That's 200 hours a year that I'm getting back. And if you take that and you extrapolate it over years, I mean, like I'm getting a lot more of my life back. So for me, it makes sense to pay this person to do this every couple of weeks, because I know what I'm getting out of it is more time that I could spend however I want, maybe with family, friends, my kids. So if you have the means, or if you are able to maybe trade something with someone, see, is there any way you can create more time in your day? Because if you could do that by delegating, that's a great way to just create more time. The other thing I highly suggest is really try to prioritize what you do on a daily basis. I do this with every decision I make. And I'm not even kidding. It's like it's kind of gotten to the point now where I program myself for this, but I really try to prioritize everything I do. So I really look at, if I have to make a decision, I look at it. And it could be something as simple as, do I go to the grocery store today? Or, do I do something today? Or do I need to do other things and I could do that some other time? Like really kind of look at your days, look at the things you have to do. And I really suggest kind of just rank things in order of importance. And if you do that, you really see that like you'll be able to maximize your time more, where you can use the stuff that's not as important, some other time that you don't necessarily need to dedicate to something else. I think it's just kind of human nature. A lot of times when stuff comes up, we feel like we got to tackle it. If you can resist the urge and really ask that question to yourself first, like, is this worth me spending time on right now? And if it's not, I would suggest not doing it. This has really helped me become more efficient and also kind of mold my days a little bit better. I use something called a 20-80 rule. And this is something that I was introduced to, and it's been super helpful. I'm sure you guys all have to-do lists, or most of you might use to-do lists. Maybe you have a sketch pad, or maybe use an app to keep whatever you have to do for that day organized. One of the best things I found is that I created a 20-80 rule, meaning like I would every night, I always kind of write out my to-do list on the notes app I have on my phone. I actually use Google Keep for it. So if you use any of the Google stuff, the Google Keep comes with it. It's an easy program to use. But every single night, I sit down, I look at all the stuff I got to do the next day, and I just rank it in order of, what do I have to do? What do I absolutely have to do? What are the hardest tasks? What are the most important tasks? And I put those on my 20% list. The rest of it, I put on my 80% list. And I'm one of those people that puts every possible thing on my list. So if I have to go to the library to get books for the kids, if I need to go to the grocery store, if my wife asks me to do something, it goes on my list. And then I categorize it just 20% the most important, 80% the rest. And I don't touch the 80% until I accomplish the 20%. And I found this to be incredibly helpful in my days, because when you tackle the hardest stuff early, your mind is refreshed from the night if you got a good night's sleep. and you're able to get this stuff done a lot quicker. There's a lot of studies about this, and you might have even heard this, but it is important to tackle the most important, the most challenging things first, because when you wake up, if you think of your mind as like a battery, which I'll talk about next, your battery depletes over the course of the day. That's why we have to sleep. And they've actually done studies on this as well. And we could go a long time without eating, but they found that we can't go the same amount of time without sleeping, because at night our brains are basically cleaning up what happened from the day and getting it ready for the next day. So, and I'll talk again more about that shortly, but 20-80 rule, if that's something that, if you're feeling like kind of maybe overwhelmed throughout the day, overwhelmed is another way for time to just I'll talk about that actually shortly. I don't want to get into it yet. But anyways, 20-80 rule, it's really helped me. It's a great way to do it. And the other thing is to set deadlines. We procrastinate. It's human nature to procrastinate. If you set deadlines for everything you have to do, though, you become more efficient, you get stuff done faster, and you actually create more time in your day by doing this. It's why, and I'll talk about stress next, because stress is essentially what happens when we have a deadline, but we don't worry about it until it's too late. But if you're able to set deadlines for yourself, like let's say you have a project that you have to do and it's due in a month. If you set deadlines throughout to get the project done, you're going to be more efficient in using your time, and the project's going to get done in a more efficient manner, and you're not going to feel stressed. That's a great way to prioritize things, to kind of mold your time a little bit more, is when you are ready to go and you could tackle that stuff earlier on, you get it done faster, which creates more time in your day. So does all that make sense? Hopefully I'm explaining that well enough. So the next thing is just how to manage time. So now you kind of understand how to mold it a little bit. The next thing I want to talk about is how to manage it. Especially when we have deadlines like I was talking about, it's crazy how, I don't know if you were like this, but I used to procrastinate all the time when I was in college, all the time when I was in school. I knew there like a book report or something was due, but I would wait forever to do it. That's what happens is it becomes stressful. We all feel stress. All stress is time plus limited space. Meaning, like, we have to do this and we have a limited time to do it. That's what stress is. And we all feel that when things have to get done immediately, it just becomes so stressful. Well, if you're able to use more time to get stuff done, as I was talking about in the last slide, you actually become less stressful. And when you become less stressful, your mind actually is clear. And when it's clear, you could use it more effectively to get stuff done and create more time in your day. So one of the best ways to do this is to schedule productivity. You know your body, you know your mind. Is there certain times where throughout the day that you are more productive? I mean, typically for most people, it's in the morning. So I'm just going to kind of lean in that direction. But whenever you know you're most productive, like that's the time to schedule all the most important stuff. Again, most of the time it's in the morning, and that's typically because, as I mentioned, your mind is like a battery. And if you just think about, like, if you know anything about electric cars, you guys are out east, or out west, Waymo and all those old electric cars out there, and California, and obviously all the wonderful green stuff your country, your cities, or excuse me, state's doing, which I wish mine would do. You're surrounded by likely electric cars. We know if you drive one, or even if you just got your phone on you, we know how well these things operate when it's at full battery. When you charge it the night before, you get up, your phone works faster, your car works faster. What happens over time, though? When that battery gets low, it's got to go in low battery mode. That car doesn't go as fast. You hit the accelerator and it just kind of gets going. It doesn't take off like it normally does. Our phones, for some reason, apps take longer. We notice our apps take longer to open up. We try to tap on stuff. It takes longer to respond. Our minds are the exact same way. We wake up, we're charged. Throughout the day, it depletes. And that's why, like, typically at the end of the day, after a long days of work, we are just burnt out, we're tired, and we just tackle things so differently. We feel like, almost like just leave me alone type of feeling, because we're just, our brains are basically burnt out at that time because the battery is depleted, and things get more challenging as your brain the brain battery depletes. Makes sense, pretty common sense there. Deleting time wasters. This is something, again, going back to prioritizing things. I've worked so hard to kind of delete those things that waste time throughout my day, and I've noticed just how much that's helped me. And what I mean by that is, I get social media is fantastic to be on. It's a time sucker. You could get sucked into TikTok, and what happens is when you do stuff like this throughout the day, when your battery is still well charged, you're wasting it. And what ends up happening is you get done scrolling or doing whatever, and now you just use it on a task that's really not as important. So now you have less battery to use on more important things. I'm not saying that you don't need to go on social media. Use your time however you want, but what I have found is that when you look at your days, I guarantee you there is stuff where you are wasting time on. And social media is definitely one of the biggest things. It's very relevant in our world, news apps, everything like that, because we're so connected. Just focus on, if you can, what's necessary. Like, what do you absolutely have to do? Push the rest of that stuff to a time where you don't need as much brain power to use. I know some people love to go on when you are, just need a break from stuff. Put yourself on a time limit. Maybe like, okay, for the next 5 minutes, I just need to zone out and do something that's not work because I'm just overwhelmed. I just need to jump on social media. That's fine. Totally, you need that. You understand your body, do it. But don't get sucked into the scrolling mindset of like 15 minutes, 20 minutes go by, and all of a sudden you're like, holy cow, I gotta get back to this stuff, because you're gonna make basically yourself more stressed trying to get back to what you have to do. Next thing is, make decisions quickly and move on. I cannot stress this enough. It is, my wife is the worst decision maker ever. She takes forever. She needs every detail. And if it was up to her, like, we would never get anything done. I'm very much make a decision, move on type person. And what I have found is that often we end up kind of almost paralyzing ourselves into trying to make a decision, and time just goes by and we're wasting it trying to make a decision on what we need to do. I found myself doing this when I don't like social media a whole lot. I have a hard time posting. I always have. It's been very challenging for me. But I would spend, maybe 20, 30 minutes on a post, and I would never even end up posting it. And I just literally wasted that time. What I found is, if you make a decision and just make it, move on from it, you'll be able to adapt to whatever happens after that. You'll figure it out and move on from it. But if you don't and you let it paralyze, you could really stop you from achieving more than you ever wanted to every single day in your life, because you're just literally staring at something that, if you just made a decision and moved on, it's gone, it's out, you're moving on to the next thing, and you are so much more effective if you do this. So I highly suggest, obviously, if you have a massive decision, I'm not saying that to move on, get what you need to get. But just when you have these smaller decisions, make them move on. If you're literally in a grocery aisle and you're not sure which cereal to pick, just throw one in the cart and move on. It's best way I could use to describe it, because I know with my kids, if I go to the grocery store, they're going back and forth for like ever. And I'm just like, nope, put it in the cart. We'll move on. They can get the one next time or whatever, but make decisions quickly and move on from them. The other thing is, and this is what Arlene is going to send you after, is this thing that I've done, and I did this a number of years ago, and I tend to do it every couple years as life changes in that. But what I highly suggest doing is starting from really getting an understanding of, well, how you spend your time every single day. So what I did was a couple years ago, I did what's called like a weekly time analysis. And what I did was, for 2 weeks, I wrote down every single thing I did and how long I spent on it. So for instance, if I was on Netflix and I'm trying to find something to watch, I don't just count the 2 hours that I watched the show, I count how long I searched for. If I was on social media and I was making a post and then I started scrolling, I didn't just count the time I made the post, I counted the entire time I was on social media. The magical thing that happened for me was seeing exactly how I'm spending my time. And it's super annoying to do this. I'm not gonna lie, it is so annoying to write all this stuff down. I had to keep a notebook with me to do it. But what was amazing was after I did the 2 weeks, you don't have to do 2 weeks, you can even do 1 week. But I looked and I go, wow, there is so many places that I was just spending all this little extra time on that made my days actually kind of like take away from what I could be doing. And when I realized that, I was able to go, okay, I need to cut myself back on these things. And a lot of it, I had no idea I was even doing. I had no idea how much time I was spending on Netflix finding a movie or whatever to watch, or scrolling through social media or anything else. But when I did a time analysis and I actually saw what my life looked like for 2 weeks, it was one of those aha moments I had where I realized, wow, okay, I need to look through this and really take it seriously and see what can I change so that I have more time in my day to work on the stuff I'm working on business wise, spend more time with my family, create more time in the day. And doing something like this is absolutely one of the best things you can do. And as I mentioned, Arlene um, has something she'll send you. So, one thing I always do at the end is I think up kind of against the time here. But one thing you could always ask yourself is what steps will you take to become more efficient? Because the one thing about learning all this stuff is one piece to it. Like you could learn all you want, but what will you actually do? What actions are you going to take then to become a more efficient human being? And I'm not talking about becoming a robot. I'm actually talking about how do you create more time so that you can live the life you want to live and get all these things done you want to do in your life and achieve all these things you want to achieve. It really starts with just going like, how can I become more efficient? And taking that first step to saying, yes, I'm going to do that. So I highly suggest really kind of looking at your days and going like, how can I be more efficient? What you'll find is when you ask this question over and over and over in your mind, our minds focus on what we tell it to focus on. That's why goals are so important, because you have a destination to go to. When you are thinking about this all the time, your mind's going to show you things that are going to help you become more efficient. Because as I said, we take in 11 million pieces of information, we can only process 40 per second. So when you are saying, hey, brain, or hey, mind, focus on this, what happens is your mind goes, oh, okay, so I need to start showing you all of these things because that's what you're telling me to do and to focus on. And when you do that, you'll find more ways to become efficient in your days, and you'll start creating a ton more time in your day that you will now have to do whatever you want. You'll become less stressed. I have crazy days. I work till 1 in the morning. I have kids and all that, but I'm not stressed because I've taken these steps to go to become more efficient. And even my wife noticed after that I wasn't as stressed out. So, that, I mean, obviously that's my experience. I feel like the people I've worked with and I've helped them with this, they felt the same way. So I'm pretty confident that if you do these things, that'll help you as well. So that's pretty much what I have for my presentation. Arlene's going to send you this. It's a PDF. It's something I put together. It's called a weekly time analysis workbook. Basically, it's the 2 weeks that I wrote out in a notebook. I put it into a doc that you can just use and print out and just write and keep with you. Again, highly suggest using that or something like it to keep track of your days so that way you know how you can become more efficient. So that's what I have for you. I really appreciate the time. If you want to follow me on social media, it's just my name. Please feel free. If you know anyone that's looking to get into real estate, as I mentioned, I wrote a couple books for them. They're called The Education of a Real Estate Agent. There's a book and an interactive workbook, and they're really designed to help someone build a real estate business quickly and also not only learn how to do it, but actually physically build it. That's what the interactive workbook is for. And that's what I have. So Thank you all so much. I hope this was very helpful.
Thank you so much, Michael, for your very, very important message to us that we need to really make time for us